All right, welcome to Psych 230 Social Psychology. Today we're continuing our lecture on Chapter 6, which is social influence. We talked about conformity, we talked about compliance, we talked about obedience last time, and we started talking about the goals. Why do we choose to conform? Why do we comply? Why do we obey? And we already talked about that. One of those reasons is because we want to make correct decisions, because we seek accuracy. Okay, and continue with that. When it comes to choosing correctly, right? We want to choose things correctly. We want to make the right decision. There's other things that impact our willingness to basically, well, our desire to choose correctly, okay, or make it more likely that we're going to conform, comply, or obey. And those things are consensus and similarity. So we are more likely to follow the behavior of others under consensus, right? When there's agreement among others. Like for the ash line study, remember the ash line study where you had to match line, you have to match a line with one of three other lines, okay? And if everybody agrees that line A is the correct choice, that is consensus. And you're more likely to go along with them, even if you know the answer is wrong, if there is consensus that everyone agrees. Just like when you're at that coffee shop and all your friends agree that that coffee tastes good, and you disagree, but because there is consensus, they are unanimous, right? You're less likely to go along. I mean, you're less likely to oppose them. You're more likely to say, yes, it tastes good. You're more likely to convict someone, even if they are innocent, if the whole jury, right, except you, agrees the person is guilty. They're all, they all agree. It's just you who doesn't, but you go along with the group more likely because there is consensus. Okay. Similarity also matters. Similar people are often copied, right? Example there, copycat suicides. That's not a good example, but yes, often when there is some celebrity that commits suicide and then there's people who really like this person and they see themselves as similar, right? And I'm just like him or just like her. Sometimes people will do the same thing, and that's a very sad thing that happens. But better example would be that you're more likely to agree with someone who is like you, basically. Someone who went to the same school as you, someone who's the same ethnicity, similar age group, similar religion, that kind of stuff. You're more likely to agree with those people, more likely to comply. You know, when they try to sell you insurance, or you're more likely to go out with them when they ask you out, more likely to study with them. Similarity is very helpful. And a lot of people who are in sales know this, and they will fake similarity, to get you to buy from them, for instance. Like the insurance salesman, who says basically, oh yeah, I also went to that college. I went to UCLA as well. I didn't go there, but that's just an example. Or yeah, oh, I have kids too. Oh, they're just like yours, that kind of stuff. And sometimes they're just outright lying, just creating similarity. So you're more likely to agree with them when they try to sell you something, right? But all those things matter. You're more likely to agree with your religion, your political group, people who are like you, your ethnicity, right? All that increases conformity. It increases conformity, remember, is when you go along with the group, but no one tells you to. They're just all doing the same thing. Compliance is when they actually ask you for something, okay? You're more likely to comply, more likely to agree when they're just like you. And then you're more likely to obey when they're similar to you. More about choosing correctly. What about when there is uncertainty, when you are not sure? Baron Bandello and Brunsman in 1986 did this experiment where they asked students to choose a criminal suspect from a lineup. So they got to see some little crime scene on the computer, okay? And later on, they were asked to identify the criminal, okay? But when they were shown the pictures of the suspects, some actually saw the pictures so quickly that it was hard for them to be certain. Some of them just didn't get a lot of time to view the suspects. Others had a lot of time to make sure they picked the right person. And some of them were motivated to be accurate with a promise of a $20 prize. They were told, if you pick the right person, we'll give you $20. Others had no incentive. They weren't told that. If they pick the right person, they don't get anything. And this is what happened. Okay. On the left there, the vertical line, you have a percent conforming. Okay. So the percent, I guess, going along with the group. So I guess this was an Ashline type of study where they had other people decide, make a decision ahead of them. Okay. Ahead of the real participant. Okay. Importance of accuracy. When the importance of accuracy was low, right? In other words, there was no incentive. They weren't going to be getting $20, right? When participants were, uncertain, or when they were certain. So uncertain is the yellow line. Certain is the white line. So you can see when it didn't matter very much, when motivation was low, you got close to 30-something% conformity there. They agreed maybe about a third of the time with the group, even when the group, let's say, gave the wrong answer. But when accuracy, when the importance of accuracy was high, when they were motivated by a $20 prize, okay, when they were motivated, right, they were going to get $20 if they picked the right one. When they were uncertain, that's the yellow line. When they were uncertain and they told, you're going to get $20 if you pick the right person. When they're uncertain and there's a promise of $20, conformity went up. They were more likely to go along with the group when they were not sure. Because there's a reward. And if you pick the right one, you get $20, but they're not sure. So they went along with the group. However, when they were certain, when they had enough time to know who the actual person was, and they said, you get $20 if you pick the right one, then conformity went down. It's like, I don't care what the group says. I know what the answer is, and I'm going to pick the right one, regardless of what the people are saying. So in other words, when you're certain and you want to be accurate, you're less likely to go along with the group. But when you don't know, okay, when you don't know and there's a potential reward, you're more likely to go along with the group. The important things about this is uncertainty. When people just don't know, okay, when they don't know what the correct choice is, who they should vote for, whether they should go along with some riot or not, whether they should go along with some situation, when they don't know, they're more likely to go along with the group when they're just not sure. We're more likely to copy others when we don't know. Maybe you're copying from someone that has the wrong answers, but you didn't study. You have no idea what the answers are. You're more likely to copy them if they offer that. If you know, you don't care so much about what they think. It's like, I'm certain, so I am not going to agree so much with other people. That's all that is saying. Let's keep going. Another reason why we conform, go along with the group, why we comply, agree with people when they ask us something, or we obey, is because we want social approval. We want other people to like us, to approve of us. And sometimes being factually correct can make us unpopular. Sometimes being on the correct side can make you unpopular. It can put you in the minority, okay? So groups actually put very strong pressure on those with deviant positions, on those that don't go along with the group, especially, by the way, in politics, as you have seen recently, right? There was the impeachment trial. All the Democrats voted to impeach. Impeach, you know who, right? Who just was in office recently, and then he lost the election, right? They all voted to impeach, and there was very strong pressure on them to vote yes for impeachment. But on the other group, Republicans, there was very strong pressure on them to vote no for impeachment. And there were only a few of them, only a few of those Republicans who were willing to do the right thing and actually stand on principle and say, this is the right thing to do. What this president did was wrong. And they voted to convict him. Only in the House, there was only about, I think, maybe, I forget if it was 10 or 30 who went against their own group. Okay, they didn't conform. And in the Senate, there was like 7 of them. Okay, those people were basically brave and basically said, you know what? I don't care what the group thinks, right? This is the right thing to do. We all know he's guilty. We know what he did, but he's so popular and so protected. So many people voted for him that those congressmen, those senators that are supposed to be Republicans, supposed to be on his side, are really scared to go against him, because all he has to do is basically say, okay, you, right, we're going to go against you and we're going to get someone to replace you because you are not going along with the majority. You're not going along with the group. Those people were brave, right? And there's a lot of pressure on them. There was a lot of pressure on them not to vote that way. And after they voted that way, now they're trying to punish them. They're trying to get rid of them, kick them out of the party. That is how powerful this is, social approval. You want to be a part of the group. You want to be approved of. You want to keep your job. You want to stay in the party. When you go against the party, right, there's a lot of pressure not to, first of all. And when you go against the party, right, they really want to stick it to you afterward, even if you did the right thing. We all know what the right thing is. We know what happened. It's very obvious, okay? But that's how politics is. It's a very, very dirty business. You have to stick with your group, right, if you want to survive politically, if you want to stay in office, even if your group actually is just protecting someone who we know is just not doing the right thing, right? Someone that should not be protected, right? Someone who's acting like a dictator. But that's what's happened. As you guys know, that party has been taken over by Trump, so to speak, right? He's the leader of that party now. Stand against him, you're going to get punished, right? Even if you're actually correct in standing against him, right? Social approval is very important, and it's not just in politics and other things as well. Stand against your family, against, you know, the class or whatever it is. People would put pressure on you, right, to stay with the group. Your religion, right, also, all those things. To vote with your kind, with your ethnicity, whatever it is, your social class, if you're rich, if you're poor, right? Very powerful thing. When it comes to gaining social approval, yes, social norms matter. And we talked about social norms before. So I'm going to remind you about what descriptive norms are. Descriptive norms we talked about before. These are norms that describe what behaviors are typically performed. Descriptive norms describe what usually happens, okay? So example, most college students dress casually for class. You know, t-shirt and jeans, right? Jeans, you know, or maybe if it's colder, then maybe you wear a jacket, you know, sweatshirt, something like that. It's pretty casual, okay? That's the descriptive norm, okay? You want approval? You have to look like everybody else to some extent. Very rarely will I ever see somebody show up in a suit. I have seen it, but it's very rare. Or very rarely will I see somebody show up like in a fancy dress, like they're going to a party or something like that. It happens, but it's highly unlikely. It's unusual. Most people dress the same way. You want to look like everybody else. You want to be accepted, right? You don't want to stand out, so to speak. Even when you're younger, right? I remember, you know, junior high, one time I showed up, you know, in slacks and a button-down shirt because I thought it was picture day, actually. I thought it was picture day, and it wasn't. And I show up and my friends are looking at me like, oh, I didn't know we were supposed to wear our clothes today, what they said, right? That's the way, their way of saying like, oh, why are you so, you know, dressed up today? I thought it was picture day, right? But they made me look foolish and they made fun of me for that, okay? Because I didn't follow the descriptive norm. There's many examples of this. Basically, you do what other people are doing. You go along with the group, you follow the descriptive norm. Now, there are also injunctive norms. Remember, injunctive norms are different. Sounds the same as a descriptive norm, but it's a little bit different. An injunctive norm, these are norms that define what behaviors are approved of or disapproved of, okay? What is okay, what is not okay. And that may not be the same as the descriptive norm. And I give you guys an example of this before, right? The correct thing to do, for instance, is when somebody, for instance, the correct thing to do is basically to help the poor. That's the correct thing to do, okay? That's the injunctive norm. But most people do not help the poor. The descriptive norm is not to help the poor. The descriptive norm is to help yourself, okay? But the injunctive norm is, yes, we should help those in need. Here's another example. So it's inappropriate to wear a bathing suit to most classes, right? That's the injunctive norm, right? You don't wear a bathing suit to a class, right? You don't show up in a bikini. or whatever it is, or in, you know, in swim trunks, right? If you're a male and, you know, without a shirt, that's not approved of. You're not going to get into trouble, okay? But people will be looking at you like, what the hell's wrong with you, you know? So yes, that's, you know, you also follow the injunctive norm because you want social approval. Now, maybe, now if it's a swim class, then it is appropriate. Then you are following the injunctive norm to show up there in swim trunks or a bikini or a bathing suit or whatever it is. Okay, so norms matter. They tell us what's approved of, what's disapproved of. Those are injunctive norms. Descriptive norms tell us what people usually do. And if we want social approval, we have to go along with what people are doing, what they approve of, what they disapprove of. More about this. So the norm of reciprocity. Here's another norm, okay, that describes what should happen, okay? The norm of reciprocity says that it requires that we repay others with the form of behavior they have given us. So if people are nice to you, you should be nice to them. That's the norm of reciprocity. If you want people to approve of you, to think well of you, right, then you should treat people nicely who are nice to you. You should repay a favor. If people do you a favor, you should do them a favor. That's the norm of reciprocity, right? And we're more likely to go along with the group, more likely to conform, more likely to comply, more likely to obey, because of the norm of reciprocity. If something does something nice for us, we feel like we have to do something nice for them. So let's say you're at the airport and then somebody gives you a flower. Oh, here's a small gift, right, for you. And now, by the way, buy these things that I'm selling right here. I'm selling, you know, some goodie bags or something like that, or whatever it is. I'm selling insurance. They used to allow that, by the way, like at airports and things like that. They don't allow that stuff anymore. Now, no, what do they call it? They don't allow that stuff anymore. I forget what the word is. But yeah, they're not allowed to do business now in another place of business, okay? But things like that. Or for instance, I was just talking about this a few weeks ago in my research methods class. A way to increase compliance, if you want people to fill out your survey, let's say you mail out your survey to a bunch of people, a way to increase compliance is to basically have a small gift in there. Here is a free pen that you can use to fill out the survey. Okay, I gave you a free pen and now you do me a favor, right? And fill out my survey and mail it back. Norm of reciprocity, right? You're more likely to agree with people, right? When they do something nice for you. They treat you nicely, like that salesman is nice to you, right? And now you should be nice to them and buy insurance from them. Basically, you know, sell your home with that real estate agent, buy a home with that agent, right? These are your friends. They're nice to you, or they're your family. They're nice to you, and then they want you to be nice to them and give them your business. And it's very hard to turn down family members. And I have several family members, cousins, and you know, basically several of them who are in the real estate business. Who am I going to give my business to? Well, luckily right now I'm not selling anything. I'm not buying anything, right? But who is it going to be? It's whoever's nicer to you, okay? But this thing is powerful, right? You're more likely to go along with the group if the group has been nice to you, more likely to conform, more likely to obey. For instance, the group, if they've done things for you in the past, you're more likely to do things for them, right? They gave you your career, right? That political party or whatever it is, or whatever it is, they passed some law that you like. Now you have to stick with them and vote for that group. You're more likely to, you know, to comply, so to speak. And here's the thing. What if you're at the club, let's say, or at a bar, and a guy offers you a drink? Can I buy you a drink? Right? You say yes to that. You should say yes only if you're willing to talk to him and dance with him, right? If you already like him a little bit, you at least like the way he looks. Because he does something for you, and then he's going to expect something in return. In return, he's going to expect that you talk to him, are nice to him, dance with him, hang out with him, and maybe even give him your phone number later on. And if you don't want to do that, do not accept the free drink, okay? Because he's going to ask for something later on, or maybe very shortly. And if you say yes to the drink, right, then you're more likely to say yes to the other thing. So it's kind of the foot in the door technique, but it's also the norm of reciprocity. I'm being nice to you, and now you be nice to me. And there's some that will even expect even more than that, and they'll expect sex. And do not accept the free gift, the drink, the ride home, or whatever the heck it is that they're offering if you do not want to be with them, if you do not want to give them a chance. Okay. It happens also with bartenders. Sometimes bartenders will be nice to you, right? So that you can be nice to them and give them a big tip. That's the way it works. They're nice to you. They smile. They may give you a wink or whatever it is. That doesn't mean they're going to go out with you, but they're being nice to you, and now you be nice to them and give them a big tip. Okay? That's the norm of reciprocity. It is a very powerful thing. I do something for you, now you do something for me. Okay? That's the way it works. In politics, very powerful thing. Businesses give money to these politicians, help them get elected, and then when they're in office, now you're in office, now you can influence the law, and now you pass laws that are going to help my business. That's the way it works. That is why there's so much money in politics, because they are buying favors. And these politicians may say that they're not going to fall for that, that they're not going to do that, they're not going to be bought, so to speak. But it's not true. Money talks. Money is powerful. And that's why there's money in politics. That's why corporations and the rich almost always get their way, because they buy people out, or they have paid for those people already. They've contributed to their campaigns, and they're going to be treated nicely if they should ever get in trouble and have to go to court. Rich people don't go to jail. Powerful people don't go to jail. They don't get convicted. Or corporations are going to pass laws in their favor, lower taxes, or whatever it is, curb emissions. It depends on which side you're on. One side favors big business, the other side, not as much. But that's the normal reciprocity. I do something nice for you, you do something nice for me. So you agree with me, you go along with the group, or you obey, right? That's what we're talking about. It's a very powerful thing. Others appeal, gaining social approval, others appeal. It also matters how appealing other people are. Attractiveness matters, okay? We're more likely to go along, to get along, when the person has, for instance, physical attractiveness. If someone is physically attractive, we're more likely to say yes to them. Whether they're selling insurance, or asking us on a date, or asking us for a ride, or asking us for money, right? Good-looking fundraisers generated 42% of basically of totals versus 23% for those who are average looking, so to speak, or not so good looking. Those that are good looking, you're more likely to say yes to, even if you're just raising money for the college or for the club or whatever it is. Hey, we're raising money. We need this for, so we can provide more scholarships. If they do it in person and it's a very good looking person, very good looking girl, oh, there'll be lots of guys lining up to give their money away. Or a good looking guy is more likely to get a yes to from other women. And also in general, good looking people are treated better. We're more likely to agree with them. We're more likely to give them a job, treat them better. It's a bias that we have, right? We're more likely to conform if it's an attractive group, attractive set of people, right? Or if it's a good looking person asking for something, who's trying to sell us a car or real estate or whatever it is, we're more likely to get along with that. We're more likely to say yes to them, right? And more likely to obey them when they tell us something. The real estate thing, real estate business. If you are a very attractive woman, you can do very well in the real estate business. But you have to know how to use your charm, how to use your looks. Okay? Because there'll be plenty of guys, okay, who are going to want to talk to you. And you'll meet other people because of those people. And they're more likely to give you your business if you are nice to them. You don't have to go out with them or have sex with them or anything like that, but you just have to be nice to them and make them think that somehow you're going to treat them nicely if they sell their house with you, or if they buy a house from, with you, right, from the list that you have or whatever. If you agree to be their, if they agree to be your agent. I mean, if they agree, yeah, they agree. If they buy from you, okay, if you're going to be their agent. It's not everything. You also have to have good social skills, know what you're doing, right? But if you're good looking, you can do very well in sales in general, okay? But there's certain types of businesses where males have the advantage, and there's certain businesses where females have the advantage. But yes, it helps to be attractive. Also, for getting into office, it helps to be attractive. It helps to be attractive for anything, okay? People are more likely to go along with you, agree with you, and obey you. Shared group membership. I'm a student too, doubles donations from students, right? If the person who's trying to raise money for the college said, oh yeah, I'm a student too, I'm just like you, I'm a struggling student, right? Then you're more likely to give them your money when they're trying to fundraise. Or saying, oh, I too am a UCLA alumni. Oh, you're a Christian? Me too. I go to the same church. That really helps, right? I'm more likely to conform, more likely to agree with you, more likely to obey you. It matters a lot, okay? Let's keep going. More about social approval, public observability. It matters if what is being, it matters if you're in public or in private, okay? For, when it comes to social influence. Experiments show that when responses will be observed by other group members, people agree more with group judgments of, for instance, whether a color patch is green or blue. So there's a certain color and it's ambiguous, right? It could be green, it could be blue, it's somewhere in the middle. Is it green or blue? You're more likely to go along with the group, whatever they say, right? If it's public. Privately, you might think, screw you guys, you guys are wrong, right? But publicly, right, there's more pressure when it's observable. Whether a cup of coffee is tasty, right? Is this really taste good? They're all looking at you, waiting for you to say something. You're more likely to go along with the group if they're looking at you, if they're paying attention. If they're not, or if it's private, you're more likely to indicate how you really feel. How to handle racist propaganda. There's a group of people and they're being racist. They're making racist jokes. Maybe about Latinos, maybe about blacks, maybe about Asians, maybe about white people, right? Do you go along with them? If it's public, let's say, they're there, public, I don't mean in front of a bunch of other people, but they're there, they can see you, right? They're telling those jokes, they're all laughing about it. How are you going to handle that? Chances are you're going to pretend to laugh and pretend to agree with them, even if you disagree. Or if they're making sexist jokes. And trust me, I've heard plenty of them. Racist, sexist jokes, grew up with all that stuff. We used to be much worse as a society. It still happens. People do say these things when they're in their own groups and they think other people aren't looking. Then you'll hear more of that stuff, right? So it actually depends. If they're there, then you're more likely to be influenced by them, or you're more likely, or they're more likely to actually show you that side of them when other people aren't looking. So the public-private thing, it depends, because I've seen it the other way around too, where there was this, we had this speaker come to USC once, this very prestigious speaker talking about his research. And at first it was kind of public. There were a lot of people there, right? Students, faculty, we had a good crowd, men, women, some diversity, not a whole lot. And he was very nice, talked about his research. And then when that ended, we kind of just hung around a little bit just to chat with him a little bit. Most people left. And I was there for a little while, then I left. And then there was, at some point, there was a time when the only people left were white males. And this happened to be a white speaker. And then he started saying all the racist stuff and all the sexist stuff. You should hear what he said, because those people, those graduate students, reported back to the rest of us. You should have seen this guy, what he was saying about women and what he was saying about black people after all you guys left, right? So sometimes it's that way, right? They think they're in a safe space, so they'll say those things. Are you going to agree with them? That matters, right? What matters is, can they see your responses, or are they observing you? Is it public? At least your responses, right? Whether it's public for them or private, that's different. But yes, it matters, right? Whether people can observe you or not. Privately, you may feel differently. The labeling technique. The labeling technique will also improve compliance. It improves the extent to which people agree with you. Using the label, you are generous, right? Activates a favorable self-image. motivates a person to act in ways that are consistent with that self-image, to be generous. So if you're trying to raise money and you tell someone, oh, you look like you're generous, you look like you're a very nice person, I'm sure you'll help us out, right? You just told them you're nice, you're generous, right? And now they're more likely to help you. They're more likely to donate to you. Why? Because they want to think of themselves in that way. And now they have to act consistently. They can still say no, but increases the chances that they're going to act consistently with that. You want somebody to be nice? Call them nice. You're dealing with students, little kids that are misbehaving. You can say, oh, you're a good boy, aren't you? And you'll see that boy basically fold his hands on his desk and say, yeah, I'm a good boy, right? That kind of stuff. It makes people more likely to agree with you when you label them in a certain way. You're so nice, you're generous, I know you're a nice person, right? That kind of stuff. I've used that myself. There was this one time where I was at a bar with this in graduate school. I was at a bar with this girl. She was an assistant actually for us in the lab. And there's this one time she was just so drunk that she was basically she started kissing this guy and that guy, and she was basically just out of control, so to speak. And you know what happened? Guys started lining up to take advantage of her, to make out with her. And I was like, snapping my fingers at her, like, what the hell are you doing? It's like stop it. You're just like, you don't know what you're doing. You're way too drunk and stuff. It didn't matter who it was. She was that far gone as far as being drunk. Okay. And I was trying to get some of these people away, right? And I remember this one guy, I told him, hey, you look like a nice guy. You're not going to take advantage of this girl who's obviously very drunk, are you? Said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm cool, man. And he went away, right? Doing stuff like that. It doesn't always work, but if you label people in a certain way and they think of themselves in that way, they're more likely to do things that fit that. That's the labeling technique. And I know that makes me seem like the hero in the story, but no, I mean, I was there with her and she was just a friend and she was very drunk. This continued. And then in the parking lot, we're leaving already. And guys were still trying to take advantage of her because she would be willing to get in a car with anybody and go home with them, so to speak. And I was like trying to get them away, almost got into fist fights and stuff like that. Eventually, I had to get somebody to help me. And this is another example of the labeling technique. I saw this one girl and said, hey, you look like a nice person, hey, you look like a nice person, you'll help me out, right? Because most people were ignoring, situation. And it's like, you look like a nice person, you'll help me out. You know what it's like to be what this is about and stuff like that. Will you please call the police, right? And she did, right? Because I couldn't do anything at the time because I was, just trying to fend off all these people, literally almost getting into fights with people, because they were trying to take advantage of this person who happened to be a friend, by the way, and still is. She called the police. She went along with what I requested, and the police came. And of course, the police didn't assume anything. They treated me like a criminal too, right? They say, all right, they saw the girl was clearly drunk, didn't know what she was doing. People trying to take advantage of her, and they treated me like a criminal. They tell me, you get the hell out of here too, right? You obviously been drinking too, get the hell out of here. And I had been drinking, right? Because we were at a bar. But I was not trying to protect them, treating me like a criminal too, and that's fine, right? The police showed up and stuff like that. They called their parents because even though she was in her 20s at the time, she still lived with her parents. The parents came to pick her up, right? And the situation was over. But I was still treated like a criminal, so to speak. But it's good that the police don't assume anything. Don't assume that this guy here was trying to help out, right? That is actually just trying to help out. He might just be trying to, get his own reward, so to speak, to take advantage of her himself. But it can be helpful to do that with some people. It doesn't work with a lot of people, but it works with some people. The people who actually are probably nice and you call them nice, then they're more likely to behave that way. There's some people who are just really mean. You call them nice, they might still be mean. Personal commitments also matter. If you commit to something, you're more likely to conform, more likely to comply, more likely to obey if you've made a commitment, right? Because in a personal commitment, when you make a commitment, that ties your identity, your self-image to a position. You commit to something, right? So it's like you're putting yourself out there and saying, I agree with this. And now you're more likely to go along with it, right? So for instance, you let's say you commit to, you make a commitment, you make a New Year's resolution, right? That this year, for instance, you are going to, you're going to get your act together, so to speak, and you're going to work hard and you're going to get better grades, right? You just basically indicated that you agree with that, you believe in that, and now you have to show that you are hardworking. And then you're more likely to go along with that, more likely to agree when your teacher tells you, hey, you better do a good job on that paper. Or, obey your teacher or comply, right? Please study for your exam, that kind of stuff. Or if you make a commitment to lose weight or to get a job or whatever it is, when you make a commitment, you're more likely to follow through with it, right? And agree with others who are pleading with you to please do this, right? Please do the right thing. And it matters if the commitment is active and public. If the commitment is active, that means you actively commit, right? There is passive commitment and there's active commitment. When you actively commit to something, you do something more than just say it. You write it down, I promise to do this, right? I promise to, get better grades, lose some weight, to find a job, work harder, or whatever it is, right? Merely making a verbal commitment, just saying it, that's passive, right? You can easily violate that New Year's resolution, right? A lot of people make New Year's resolutions and most of them will fail in just the first month, okay? But if you write it down, it's like you're making a contract. On this day, I, blah, 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 promise to do this and that. And you wrote it down, and that makes it stronger, and you're more likely to follow up, okay? And actually do it, okay? It also matters if it's public, right? If you commit to something publicly rather than privately, if there are other people around and you say, hey, all right, everybody, I would like everybody's attention. This year, I promise that I'm going to lose 20 pounds. Or this year, I promise that I am going to get at least a 3.5 GPA or something like that. Or I promise that I'm going to get a job. I'm going to do this or that. I'm going to quit drugs or whatever it is. When the commitment is public, when other people can see you, you're more likely to stick with it. If you do it privately, you just said it to yourself, it's very easy to violate that. But you're more likely to follow through if it's public. And you're more likely to agree with people who are trying to keep you on the right track, trying to get you to comply. Right. And there was an experiment that was done, an Ash type of experiment where participants made line judgments. Okay. Before hearing the group members' responses, before hearing the group members give the wrong answers, participants, of course, they were asked, of course, about what they thought, right? Which line most closely matches these three, which of these three lines most closely matches this line, right? They were asked what they think, okay? And some of them, they didn't write down what they thought the correct answer was, and they didn't tell anybody. It wasn't public. So it was passive, they just said it, and there was nobody around, it was private. Other people were asked to write down what they thought the answer was, so they made an active commitment. But their judgments were private. No one was around to see them. And there's other people who were asked to write down what they thought the correct answer was. So their commitment was public. Was not public, was active. And then they did this in front of the experimenter, in front of other people. Okay? So it was public. So it's both active and public, what they're saying the answer is. And then later on, there are other people who were asked what they think the answer is, and they all gave the wrong answer. And then they ask you again, what do you think the right answer is? In front of these people. And here's what happened. Here's the, sticking with their original judgment. In this case, the vertical line on the left basically says the extent to which you stick with what you said you were going to do. In other words, you're going against the group because they deliberately give the wrong answer. You're going against the group, okay? You can see that those that didn't write down what they thought the answer was, and they did it privately, those are the ones that were least likely to stick with their original answer, that they know that that's the correct thing. Only about half of them did that. Half of them went along with the group. Those that made an active commitment, that wrote it down, but still did it privately, they stuck with their correct answer about maybe 75% of the time. And then those that made an active commitment, they wrote it down and they did this in front of people. They said, this is the answer, right, in front of other people. Then when they were confronted with the group's wrong answer, they were more likely close to, 90-something% stuck with their original answer. It tells you basically the importance of commitments, right, of saying something, but not just saying it, writing it down and making it public. It makes it stronger, makes it that you're more likely to stick with, with your conviction, so to speak. And I guess a way to think about that is you're less likely to conform, less likely to agree, less likely to obey, right? If what they're asking you to do is contrary to what you actually believe. All right, let's keep going. What about men versus women? Who's more likely to conform? Men conform less than women when they know their judgments will be made public. Why is that? Why are men less likely to go along? Men are less likely to go along with the group. More likely to say, screw you, I don't agree with you. No, I don't want to buy that from you. They're less likely to comply, less likely to obey. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't care. I don't care that you can punish me, right? Why are men less likely to conform, right? Do men and women seek acceptance differently? Does that have something to do with that? Well, I wish I could get your discussion, but let's keep going and I'll tell you guys. So both men and women want acceptance, both of them. But men, demonstrate acceptance by saying that they're independent, they're leaders, right, in order to be accepted. Men are taught that desirable men are strong, independent, right, tough. That's what a man should be like. So they try to get accepted by going against the group, by being more individualistic. Women, on the other hand, demonstrate more relational qualities. They're taught more to go along with the group, be nice, be caring, be nurturing, be more family oriented. So in other words, you need to care more about what the group says and you should go along with them more. And that's why, according to some research, why women are more likely to agree, more likely to go along with the group, more likely to obey because of what they're taught and the way they're socialized. But it doesn't say here, but biology also matters. Remember, men have more testosterone. And having more testosterone means, screw you, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to disagree with you more. I'm going to be tougher, more aggressive. Women have less of that. And that's it. I'll stop there.